So I'm going to call our school board meeting for January the 22nd, 2019 to order. Thank you everybody for being here tonight, and we appreciate your patience as we were dealing with some issues in executive session where we took no action. Let's see here. I love technology. Come on. Yeah, I am. This time I'd like to call on Mrs. Glenda Morrison Fair to lead us in our prayer, and then following that, Mrs. Debbie Bush will be introducing our student this evening who will be leading in our Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please stand?
Thank you, Chairman Sailors. Let us pray. Dear God, teach us to pray in all seasons of life, especially during times of adversity. Let us pray for strength, guidance, understanding, unity, healing, and direction. Give us strength to love in spite of turbulent, uncertain times. And when faced with the choice, may we always choose community versus chaos. Amen.
Mrs. Bush.
Yes, I am so excited tonight to introduce to you a student from Berea Elementary School. Her name is Jakaya, and I'm going to save her last name for just a moment. But I want to tell you a little bit about Jakaya. She is a 5th grader at Berea Elementary School. She is a member of the School Safety Patrol program, and she helps students with special needs walk to school each morning. And now, for most of you that know that I have a flower shop and one of my favorite holidays, and it just happens that Jakaya's last name is Valentine's. So everybody will remember that Jakaya, and if you'll notice when she puts her hand on her heart, she has a little sparkle to make Berea sparkle tonight on her wrist. So we thank you so much. She is here with her mom, her older sister, and her younger brother, who really wanted to stay at home and do homework, but thought that he would come and support his sister tonight. So we thank you so much for coming to support her. So now, if you will, Jakaya, please lead us in the pledge.
A pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
And you can hold that wrist down there. Hold that wrist down there. There we go.
Thank you, Jakaya. Did a great job. Good luck in school, sweetie. Also, while we're in this point of the agenda, I want to, speaking of Valentine's, thank Mrs. Bush for the flowers on the dais this evening. And I guess this is kind of a slow season for you, right?
Yes, very slow.
Okay.
Sure.
Next item of business in order is the adoption of our consent calendar. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion properly made and duly seconded to approve the consent calendar as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Dr. Royster, I believe you have some recognitions tonight.
I do. I'd like to, in one respect, introduce 2 new principals. One probably does not need introduction to you. I think many of you are well acquainted with Dan Bruce. Dan currently serves, Dan, if you'd stand, currently serves as the principal of Greer Middle School. He has done an outstanding job in that role. And he, upon your vote tonight, is now the new principal, and we welcome him to that new and challenging role as new principal of Travelers Rest High School. So we are most happy to have him continue the excellent leadership he's been providing to students in our district in this new role for him, and look forward to great things coming out of his leadership at Travelers Rest. We have next a newcomer to Greenville County Schools, Maureen Tiller. Maureen is the just appointed principal of the first new high school in Greenville County, not new building, but new high school in well over 30 years, I think probably close to 40 years. So that is a great and challenging opportunity for any principal. She comes to us with a great background of experience and has provided very strong leadership. Her current assignment at Clinton High School. It has a unique distinction, which is very rare these days, having served very successfully as both as elementary principal, middle school principal, and high school principal. So we are most pleased to be able to introduce Maureen tonight, to welcome you to Greenville County, and welcome you to the great opportunity and challenge to put there in Fountain Inn what has not been there before, and that's a new high school, or at least not in the last 60-something years, a high school. And I know that you will meet that challenge with the same sort of excellent work that you have done in all your previous assignments before coming to Greenville County Schools. So we look forward for great things, and welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Royster. Our next item of business in order is an awards presentation. I'm going to ask Dr. Royster to join me at the dais so we can recognize one of our colleagues. Mr. Meek, would you kindly join us this evening? Yeah, he did it again, didn't he? Roger Meek has reached a milestone that many of us on this dais hope to reach one day. Has 25 years of service on the school board for Greenville County. A quarter of a century. We both had hair when we got on this board. Nevertheless, I'd like to read this letter that is to Roger on behalf of our state president, Tony Falk, and our executive director, Scott Price. And where did Mrs. Wells go? She's a board member of the School Board Association. I'd like to have her come up. Here she is. Okay, we'll catch her in a little bit. Okay. First of all, to Mr. Meek, congratulations on achieving 25 years of board service for Greenville County Schools. On behalf of the officers, staff of the South Carolina School Boards Association, thank you for your service. You have played a critical role in guiding your district and have invested countless hours to improve public education. The South Carolina School Board Association is happy to be part of this recognition by providing you the lapel pin and certificate which Dr. Royster is presenting. What an accomplishment you have made, and again, congratulations for your service to both the South Carolina School Board Association and to Greenville County Schools. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Roger for this milestone.
Thank you all. I'm just looking forward to the next 25 years.
Good luck.
Thank you for indulging us this evening. Our next item of business in order is the appearance of visitors. We have one person that has signed up to speak to us this evening, and I'd like to ask Terrell Brown to please come to the podium. Mr. Brown, I think you have been here before, so you understand the rules of the presentation, and I'll turn the mic over to you for 3 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Superintendent Royster, Chairman Stalers, members of the board, and the guests in the audience. My name is Terrell Brown. In addition to proudly serving as a second grade teacher at Charity Elementary School, I'm the president of the Greenville County Education Association, which is the local affiliate of the South Carolina Education Association. The month of January marks the annual observation of School Board Appreciation Month, a time to salute the work of school board members and celebrate public education. We came here today to recognize and thank you for all that you do for Greenville County Schools. We recognize that school board members play a unique role in promoting and advancing for quality public education, and the decision made here directly influence instruction in our schools. We must ensure that our direction prepares all students to be competitive in a local, state, national, and global economy. But we all need people who will give us feedback, and that's how we improve. And that was quoted by Bill Gates. Now this year we have done something different, very different, because we feel that it is our time to shine. The clock, which is given to you on your desk, is there to let you know that teachers are feeling that they don't have a lot of time to do a lot of things that are required for them to do. Now we have been taking in-house surveys amongst us, and this is the most common issue. There are a lot of neglected planning periods that go unnoticed due to meetings and other various events. We just want to let you know that this may be the time to look into this issue. Many teachers are leaving this profession and they feel that they're overworked and there isn't enough hours in the day to get this task done. Example, many may say, why haven't we heard from the teachers? They may be in front of you. If you go downtown, they may be a waiter. If you go to the airport, there may be a flight person checking you in. If you go to a Sears, they may be the one giving you customer service. So they are in front of you, you just might not need to see them, or they might not be ashamed to tell you that they are a teacher. But it's hard working 2 jobs. I'm lucky that I don't have to work 2 jobs, but there are teachers who work 2 jobs. Student loans is a big problem. Cost of living. When I lived here, 2006, rent was $425. Now, enough said. The Greenville County Education Association recognizes your contribution and academic success to our children, but let's not forget about the most important link. We wish to express our sincerest recognition to you and our school board members and focus on the well-being and achievement of our children throughout Greenville County. We look forward to our future collaboration together and great public schools for all our children, as well as the educators who give the ultimate sacrifice after hours and on the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Terrell. And thank you for you and your colleagues for your service in the classroom. At this time, we'll have our superintendent's report. Dr. Royster.
As an extension, Mr. Sailors, of Terrell's comments and the other things that you have in front of you, it's my privilege tonight and pleasure to, as the superintendent's report, talk a little bit about the importance of the Board of Trustees, it being Board Recognition Month. And I think I shared a little bit of this with you last year, but as you look back in the history of the United States, one of the earliest forms of local government, and I think dating back to the 1600s, was in Massachusetts, the local school committees, the forerunner of what's today's School Board of Trustees. And that's evolved, obviously, tremendously throughout the years. What has not evolved from that is the importance of that role to the community, the closeness that governance, that you as a governing body have to the community and people that you serve. One of the purest forms of local government because of those ties directly to the local community, providing those services and governing those services at the level that people are receiving the services. There is little that I can say that could stress how important that is. The best government is that which is closest to the people, carrying out their wishes. Now, obviously, you have a greater responsibility. The economic vitality and the well-being not only of our community, but of our state and our nation is reliant on the public schools. Public education ensures that we have the kind of government that we want to have, that is representative democracy. It ensures that we have the kind of community that we all want to live in. While you provide that tie back to the local community. You have, and this group has always, looked at the bigger and the broader picture. Just as you come to this body and you don't simply represent your constituents, you do that, but you represent the good of the entire community, of the entire district, and that ultimately relates to the good of the state and to the nation. What makes that so special is that those decisions are made close to where the process is carried out and where people are most greatly impacted. I appreciate your vision. I appreciate your support. The things that we do, we could not do, and I think we've done a lot of innovative things in this district. Teachers in classrooms throughout the district, principals in schools throughout the district, staff up here. There are a lot of great things happening in Greenville County Schools. Those things could not happen without your vision, without your support for allowing them to take place, and for providing the financial resources to ensure that those things are done. Setting high expectations, but allowing us the opportunity and freedom to select in the best ways to reach those and meet those expectations. For that, we are particularly grateful. And we like to not just share the words of gratitude, but in some small way provide you with a token. That's your cue out there. Those of you that might have dozed off during my speech. To provide you a token of our appreciation.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Apparently we should have practiced that. Again, a small token of our appreciation, something that we hope that you will enjoy using as you carry out your responsibilities and attend events and activities that may on occasion not occur inside or during the best of weather. So,
Thank you, Bert.
that's right, if you just want to show it off. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Royster, and to the members of the staff who, you handled that hint very well. Thank you. Yeah. Now we move into the action items of, Mr. Williams, would you please stand? Thank you for the chip witches. No, we covet those, baby. I'll tell you, those are bartering chips more than cookies. Thank you. Huh? No, they're not. We'll take yours.
Yeah, just
Okay. Our next item of business in order is item 601 under action items, Advocacy Committee Report on School Safety Changes. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Advocacy Committee, as you know, presented at the last Committee of the Whole some recommended school safety policy positions, and after reflecting on the feedback from the Committee of the Whole, we have our new revised school safety recommendations that Ms. Grayson and her team put together. Before she presents, I just want to once again thank her for all of her help on this. I think she did an incredible job bringing together hours of testimony, both from within the school district and from particularly from school safety officers and from law enforcement officers and mental health professionals, and I really appreciate that. So, Ms. Grayson.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. So we presented this at the CAL, and I'm not going to go through them all, but what I handed out just a minute ago is the original document that was presented at the CAL with all of the changes that we discussed, either added in red or deleted by being underlined. So, and if I've forgotten anything, let me know. But we went through it with the committee went through it just a little while ago. In the first recommendation, we basically just broadened the definition of providing funding to hire and train school resource officers and expanded that to say security personnel, because one of the problems that we have is we can't find enough school resource officers to get them in every school, even if we had the money to do it. And then the second change is in regards to McMaster's plan, to put SROs in schools. If that plan is funded and approved, we had some concerns about the cost, about the fiscal impact, and about the source of funding, whether it's going to be one-time money or recurring revenue, because once we get these guys in place, we're going to have to pay for them every year. The next incorporated change is policy number 4 in Part B. When we talked about this is the recommendation where we suggest to the State Department of Ed that they have a centralized security personnel within the State Department so that to provide consultation for best practices throughout the state on how to get these school safety plans implemented. Yeah, there's a state law that says we have to have them by 2021, but a lot of the smaller districts don't have the resources to go out and start from scratch. So what we tried to do is to provide a blueprint of some things that we have found that work well and incorporated them into some suggestions to have a centralized security experts, if you will, that can be consulted as these schools try to and districts try to develop their own safety plans. Part B was adjusted a little bit. It encourages a balanced approach, consulting law enforcement and mental health professionals as needed to balance when we're building our schools and creating our environments, that we balance the need for safety and the need for mental health. And then there was a minor change in recommendation 6. I think the original, and I apologize because I took out the original language, but I think it was narrow. It was something like active shooter, and I just broadened that to say current safety issues, because there may be threats out there that we don't even know about. One of the reasons that we're making these recommendations is because there are threats currently in our schools that weren't there 20 years ago, and there may be some more out there. So we wanted to make it broad enough to encompass all potential threats. And the last change is still on recommendation 6. We omitted the last paragraph because of concerns from some board members about directing OCF to mandate anything to require school districts to consult local law enforcement. We still think it's a good idea. If you're building a new building, you should contact law enforcement, but we didn't want to direct the Office of School Facilities to require school districts to do something, just in line with our general policy that we don't want mandates, that the best laws are made locally. And that is it. I will be glad to entertain any questions.
Yes, thank you for making the revisions to reflect the last meeting's conversation. The one question that I have is, would it be worth saying that we wouldn't want any additional funding to be taken from existing educational funding, just so they don't shift away from funds for the classroom to SROs?
You talk about recommendation 1?
Yeah.
Just adding the word additional to provide additional funding to hire and train?
Yeah, so that it wouldn't be just substituting by taking funding from one area of public education funding for security, but anything that they were going to do in that area would be an add rather than a, but I think your suggestion probably hits that.
Would you like to make a motion to amend policy recommendation number 1?
Yes. May I ask, do you think that would satisfy that concern, to just add the word additional?
I do.
Okay. I move to amend policy recommendation number 1 to read, provide additional funding to hire and train school resource, or, excuse me, train school security personnel.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Sadler?
It's okay. You got a motion properly made and duly seconded. Any discussion on the question at hand?
Sorry.
It's okay. Derek?
Just a point of clarification. So is it our intent to approve each policy recommendation individually? Or we have only made an amendment to number 1? Are we approving, is that the only amendment that, okay. Thank you.
That's the
other
only
questions?
amendment I was.
Mrs. Wells?
Just another clarification. I thought we had talked perhaps about only really taking as a board action approving the policy recommendation itself and not necessarily the full body of the document, so that if you needed to tweak the language in the explanation, much like we do at the State School Board Association.
Correct.
Then that wouldn't really be something that you'd have to bring back to the board. Are we approving tonight, is the motion that we're going to approve specifically the policy recommendation language or the full document?
Policy recommendation language.
Is that what the motion
Well, I mean,
is that
at
what the
the-
motion says?
No.
The motion says to approve the committee report, which is the entire document.
Yeah, and let me remind that we had this discussion at the COW, and then I immediately incorporated all the changes and sent it back out January the 9th, specifically so that we could do this without trying to wordsmith it during a board meeting. If there are changes, let's amend it, let's get it done. But, this will provide the basis for the presentation that we're going to make to the State School Boards Association, and it will include not only the policy recommendations, but the rationale behind it.
Yeah. Well, so, and all I'm trying to understand is that, or allow for, is some latitude if things change in the General Assembly, if someone brings a bill forward that's in conflict, if we've only approved the recommendations and not all the rationale, you could change something in the body of that would address whatever the new legislation or whatever the new action might be without having to go through the whole bringing it back to the board to add something or to change something. So it's fine with me for us to approve the whole thing, and I have a couple of Scribner's, errors to mark for you. But
Well, it just recognize that what's on board docs is not this. This is just our working document, so you wouldn't have to go back. What's on board docs has fixed a lot of those Scrivener's errors. The final version is on board docs, but I wanted to distribute the working copy so that you would know what we were changing and what we were taking out. So that's what you have. That's what you have printed out in front of you. But on board docs is the actual document that was approved from the advocacy committee and that we're asking the board to vote on tonight. Does that make sense?
yeah, so there's still a couple that I see, but I'll
Well, you'll
just note 'em. I'll just note
share
them
that
for
with
you.
Chair.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
So then we still have a motion on the floor to amend by addition. So we'll go back to the discussion of that one action. Is there any other additions or is there any other discussion on the one motion to amend by addition on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, could you hold just a minute? Let me find
Sure.
this. Where in the policy recommendation is in paragraph 1 that you made the addition? Where is that? I wasn't looking.
And the
I'm sorry.
In the title of it.
In the recommendation
Okay,
itself.
I'm with you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any other comments or questions related to the motion to amend by addition? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. So now we go back to the recommended motion from the Advocacy Committee, which is to approve the Advocacy Committee report as amended on school safety policy changes. Any other discussion on the document as a whole? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Lewis, Ms. Grayson, and to everybody who had their fingerprints on this, thank you very much. Our next item of business in order is the proposed master audit plan. Ladies and gentlemen, as you'll notice, sitting at the end of the dais next to Mr. Webb is not Mr. Barber. Lee's here in his place this evening. Rick had a death in the family and was unable to be with us tonight. So Lee, thank you for being with us. There's a recommended motion coming from the Internal Audit Service Department to approve the proposed master internal audit plan for the 2019 calendar year. Is there a motion? Is there a maker of the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion properly made and duly seconded. Lee, do you have a presentation, or are you just here for questions? You're here for questions. Thank you. Okay, are there any questions? Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a number of questions, and I know that you're in the unenviable position of answering them for Mr. Barber, which makes me a little uncomfortable. So I'm happy to ask these questions. However, I'd feel much more comfortable if we tabled this discussion until he was present.
All right.
However, since staff has recommended we continue, I'll continue with my questions.
Okay.
Can you tell me how many hours we spent on audits in 2018?
Yes, sir. Just a moment. I need help on my glasses. Well, this is just... Let me get my glasses, sorry. For the total audits. Just a minute, I'm not sure Rick gave me exactly what I need on that. I do not have the total. I have the January report rather than the December 18 report. It has the total on that report that would have been provided last month.
Lee, I think Jeff's got it right.
You have it? I think that's January. I know, but that's the total on this project. If you go back to, this is the one that's for January. Can you look at last one? Okay, he should be able to find that. He's looking that up for us.
Can you tell me how many hours are planned to be spent in FY19 based on the master plan?
Yes, sir, I
that's submitted to the
can.
board?
The total budgeted available hours that Rick estimated, and it's an estimate, he comes up with the hours and then backs out vacation, that sort of thing, is 4,702 hours and 2.5 hours.
4,700 hours. Does that include the position that's currently vacant in your office?
No, it does not.
So 4,700 hours plus the hours that are allocated to that position, or?
Right,
that-
if we had the extra position, that would definitely go up.
So the total number of hours that the current staff, without filling that position, could spend is 4,700 hours.
Yes, sir.
The total number of hours that you spent in 2018,
As of December 7th, it was 4,357.
so when you look at these 4 projects here, so there are four projects with no detail, just 4 bullets. And I think we discussed at the previous discussions with this auditor that was an unacceptably small amount of detail. So can you
Okay.
explain to me, student activity funds, when is that project scheduled to begin, if it's approved tonight?
That would be scheduled to begin after year end, so after June 30th, so that we would do the current school year.
So no action is going to be taken on student activity funds for
Right.
for 2019 between now and June 30th?
Right, we're currently finishing the one that we've been working on.
How long
So
do
it's
you
pretty-
expect that audit to take?
The one for 19, he has budgeted 1,200 hours for that.
Who requested that audit?
That's within the internal audit charter. We do that yearly on an annual basis.
Can you tell me where in the charter it specifically says a student activity fund audit is to be done yearly?
I don't have it in front of me. I know that was part of when they originally set it up. I don't have the charter with me.
Okay.
I can find it.
I do.
Okay.
And it doesn't specifically say
It doesn't?
student activity funds, although it does
Okay.
say that the audits are responsible for handling funds that come in and out of the district. So,
Okay.
so then for the second question, who requested this audit? So you're saying that you believe it's part of the charter. The warehouse physical inventory, how long do you expect that audit to take?
Oh, that's a very small one, 25 hours. That's to help with the external auditors to put the CAFR together each year.
So that takes
That's a-
25 hours.
Right.
Okay. Who requested that audit?
We've been doing that as long as I've been employed here, so I'm not sure that that's,
Okay. The third audit that you have on your list is EFA student classifications. Can you explain that audit?
correct. That is making sure that students are properly classified in the Power School system so that when we send the reports to the state, that affects our funding for the EFA funding. I think Jeff could speak on that also because he mentioned that might be, I mean, we've done that in the past, but, and we found significant errors in the past. And I think the administration requested that we take a look at that again.
So the administration requested that audit.
Right.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Is that correct?
It helps us to ensure that we've properly received funds, ensuring that we've provided a proper weighting for students, and that helps prevent us from us either being shortchanged by the state or us overclaiming, where if we receive, when we're audited by the state, we'd be responsible for paying it back. So it helps us to ensure that we're submitting correct and accurate weighted pupil information to the state. So that's at the request of the administration.
How many hours do you expect of audit time to be used for that?
Around 700.
The extended day programs, can you explain that audit?
That's one that we have finished that I believe will be presented hopefully next month. And they're based on that audit, we felt like it was appropriate to look further into that, and I believe the administration agreed with that also, kind of following up on what we'd already done.
So who requested that audit? The administration?
I think it was a combination of administration and our department.
And how many hours do you expect that audit to be?
800.
And those are the 4 total audits that your department has planned for 2019.
Correct, but then we have audits from 2018 that have not been completed.
Okay,
They have
they're not
one.
on this list, so what is it from 2018 that needs to be added to this list?
Well, they were approved in the previous year, so I think that's why they're not on to be approved again. They would have been in the 2018 master audit plan. It's, we're finishing student activity funds. We also have cash receipting and accounts receivable, purchasing cards and credit cards, and risk management.
Okay, when I read the letter that's submitted here, it says proposed master internal audit plan for 2019 calendar year, and it has no mention of any items from 2018 in that plan. So are you saying in addition to this plan, there are additional audits that aren't listed on your 2019 calendar year plan?
Well, they were listed for 2018, so I mean, we had a 2018 proposed master audit plan that was approved in last January. But we haven't, I mean, a lot of times these projects carry over, and we lost a staff member, so we're still trying to catch up with trying to get those finished.
Right, I hear the words you're saying. What I'm
Right.
saying to you is the document you're asking us to approve tonight for the 2019 calendar year
Okay.
only names 4 audits that total less than 3,000 hours
Correct.
for an office of people with 4,700 hours. So if there are more audits, then shouldn't they be on this list?
If that's a new way that needs to be approached, that's something that I guess needs to be talked to with Mr. Barber, because once they've been approved in the past, I think they've just moved forward with the new projects to be on the plan.
In August of 2018, Mr. Barber sent out an email to the entire board on August the 31st, where he asked for the board to provide audits to be added to the 2019 calendar year audit plan.
Okay.
How many board members submitted audits?
I do not know that.
You don't know.
I do not.
Okay, I did. And one of the audits that I submitted was an audit of our technology equipment. And the answer I got from Mr. Barber this week, 4 months later, was that there wasn't enough time in the hours allotted to get to that audit. Can you explain that?
I think you're going to have to ask him. I do know that, was it with the Chromebooks?
Yes.
Was that the, I think it was to the policy on how the resources of those are taken care of. I know we talked about the fact that students pay insurance for those, so I think there's an insurance policy that covers any damaged or lost. I mean, it's definitely something that we're capable of doing. You know, I can't speak for him as to.
You're correct.
Right.
Additionally, I requested an audit of gifts that are made to high schools specifically to make sure that we're ensuring that gifts made to high school sports programs are being recorded correctly to make sure that we're not in violation of Title IX.
Okay.
Why is that audit not on this list?
I mean, I can show you the breakdown of this when you take the audits from what we have left to do that had already been approved, plus the 4 that we're asking to be approved, and it still leaves a negative in hours, and that's at working at, you know, not hardly taking a break to breathe, it seems. But I can't, I mean, there is an 800-hour element in there for special requests. If anything comes up during the year that anything unforeseen.
Okay, but again, your number you're coming up with is if the board approves the FY19 items and also rolls over the 2018 items that aren't even on this list. So there's not a missing 800 hours. There's a missing 1,800 hours between the number of hours that you just broke down for me, your office will do, and the number of hours that our budget is paying you to do.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I cannot, in good faith, accept this audit proposal the way that it is without Mr. Barber being here to answer these questions. And I've heard repeatedly that we need to ask him, and I would be incredibly uncomfortable approving an audit without being able to ask him. And so while I appreciate that it's an agenda item that needs to be approved tonight, it's my motion that we table this item until a future board meeting can be set where Mr. Barber can come and answer these questions. And I am comfortable making the motion that the chair set a time for Mr. Barber to come so that it could be at the next scheduled board meeting. So my motion would be that we table this until the chair can determine a time when he and Mr. Barber could be present to answer these questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interrupt, I don't believe he wants to table it. I think he wants to postpone it. Table means you put it on, you have to vote to take it off. I think you want to postpone it instead of that.
That would be considering, Mr. Lewis, considering the fact that the chair is assuming you'd like to just have this moved to next month's agenda so Mr. Barber can be here to answer those questions that you and others may have. So postponing it, yes, would be the more appropriate move. So would you like to amend your motion or restate your motion because there's not a second yet?
I'm happy to restate my motion that we postpone the approval of the 2019 audit until the next month's board meeting.
Okay, I have a motion to postpone this action item until our February board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion properly made and seconded to postpone. Discussion on the motion to postpone. Mr. Meek, then Mrs. Wells.
Mr. Chairman, Lee, will this affect the preparation or anything, and y'all getting the audits prepared or getting set up for if it's postponed for a month?
The one that it might postpone is the EFA funding. We would need to start the planning on that in order for us to get the work done in order to be of use for the administration for the 135th day count. That's the one that has the time, the time limit.
Okay.
That it could be, there's other ways I think we can request it, special request, if that becomes an issue.
Dr. Rogers.
Jeff, I know we'd want to try to do that if we could before the end of the fiscal year. Is 135 that time sensitive, or?
Yes, sir. The 135-day student count is in March.
Right.
If they were delayed and we're given permission to do this audit, we would ask Rick to maybe focus on the classification of special education students in that audit.
But as long as we got straight with the State Department before we conclude our fiscal year and they conclude theirs, am I reading that wrong, or would we still be okay?
And we can ask. We can ask.
I know if we say it after July 1, it would be a little bit of a problem.
Yes, so could they make their final June payment based on a 135-day student count? I can ask and see.
So perhaps the board might entertain proceeding with that one and not others.
Okay. Well, Mr. Meek still has the floor.
I'm just going to ask you now, this is 2019. Are we talking about the 135-day next year, or are we talking this March?
This March, yes, sir.
But this is what you're asking us to approve, I thought, was for the next fiscal year. Calendar. It's a calendar year.
Yes, sir.
I should read, shouldn't I? Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lewis, do you have a clarification? Otherwise, I'm going to go to Mrs. Wells.
I just want to clarify that the reason that I'm comfortable postponing is that board policy allows for the chair to direct the auditor to conduct an audit at any time without board approval. And so if there's work that needs to be done in this office, the current board chair can direct the auditor to do that work without board approval.
That is correct. So if this motion then is passed as presented, the board chair could direct
That is correct.
the auditor to go ahead and move on 135.
And anything else that comes up.
Wait a second. Doug? Am I correct?
I don't think so either.
No, I saw Roger raise his hands.
But the board's voting on it now, so the chair can't overrule the board.
Right. I agree with Roger.
If I put my 2 cents worth in, I'm just saying that if we pass this motion, then you cannot override what the board has said, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Although it says that in the policy, but I don't think they were talking about where the board has voted on it.
I would like to take a minute to read the policy. I understand Mr. Meek's point. The only caveat to that would be that it's being tabled. There is not an action to say the auditor can't have any more new projects. So I'm not so sure that would prevent the board chair from taking an action.
He's saying he's going to postpone.
I'm sorry, postpone until next month. So I would like a minute, if you would like me to answer this question.
Why don't we give you that minute and let me go to Mrs. Wells and Dr. O'Connor because they're the next ones to speak. Fair enough?
Fair.
Mrs. Wells?
Okay, so I'm trying to understand if I feel like there's a reason to postpone. The way I read this memo, and has been the practice since I've been on the board, every year for the calendar year, you do bring us a new set of audits to do, but they don't trump or take away what you've already started and begun.
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
So there's the sentence in the paragraph, at the end of the first paragraph says, with these objectives in mind, the following areas included in the proposed master internal audit plan are presented for approval. So it doesn't say this is the proposed master internal audit plan. What it says is these areas are included and presented for approval. So what I gathered from that is that sheet that we get every month that has that running list of 2015, 16, 17, 18, it's got several years. Some of those stay open, and that is the master internal audit plan.
Correct. That's the total for every year, because there's rarely a year that something doesn't happen to kind
Right.
of skew it. So we just carry those forward and complete those and just keep going.
Right. So I'm, what I haven't done the math, but what I'm imagining then is with the number of hours, the new hours that we have,
Right.
and the hours to complete the audits we have open would represent the full slate of what needs to be approved, with the exception being the 800 hours that you mentioned for special projects that's sitting there.
Right.
Right.
Mr. Barber just backed that out, just as sort of a cushion, but because we usually do get one or two special requests. That's been the case for the last few years. So when he came up with the total budget hours of 4,700 and backed out the estimate for special requests, of course, obviously, if nothing comes up, those audit hours could go to other projects later. I mean, this is not the end of, I mean, just the only projects we can do. We typically add projects throughout the year as concerns come up. So this is more of a start to things that we know that probably need to be looked at, and then it's pretty common for us to add projects also.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
or someone else who's maybe been on the board for 25 years, I don't know, could answer this question. I guess we don't, we have not had, in my time on the board, a time when a single board member, an individual board member, has really requested a specific audit. The audits that have been requested by the board, kind of outside of what I've seen the auditor do, I can remember maybe a time or two when the board has taken action to say, we want this audit to happen, or the administration recommends something and the chairman calls for a special audit. Is that correct? And this is kind of an anomaly that we've had an individual board member request specific audits to be included.
Well, I think Mr. Lewis can speak to that since he brought it up.
I know.
Since he has made requests, I'd like to ask him to clarify.
Since Mr. Barber is not here, I will answer that. In 2016, I requested an audit that didn't get included because I was told that I didn't request it enough time. In 2017, I requested an audit to be included and was told that he lost the email. In 2018, I requested an audit, and now I'm being told that there's not enough time to get all the audits done. So for 3 years in a row, Mr. Barber has sent an email asking board members to make suggestions for audits. I have done it all 3 years, and all 3 years they have not been included. So my frustration here is about that,
Okay.
which Mr. Barber can't answer because he's not here.
Right. So, but in those circumstances, if a single board member believes an audit needs to take place, and it hasn't risen, as I remember it, the auditor's office has a specific process for looking at risk assessment.
Yes, ma'am.
And so they look at all the different options for what we might audit, and maybe suggestions as well, and conduct a risk assessment to determine where are we going to spend our time this year.
Correct.
Right. So what I guess what I would like to see is I don't see a need to postpone this audit because we have an 800-hour cushion in there. I would just ask that we maybe approve the audit plan and then next month come back so that the board can have a discussion and understand what that audit is before our auditor is directed to do an audit that one board member has requested, so that all the board is on the same page, just like we do anything else. Get the board to consensus on, yes, we want that audit performed, or no, we don't. So there's nothing that says once this audit plan is approved that next month we can't have a conversation and approve an additional audit. Is that right, Mr. Chairman?
That is correct, and I would like to clarify one thing. In at least one of those instances that Mr. Lewis referred to, he was not the only board member that asked for a specific audit that particular year. There were other trustees that agreed with the position he took.
Okay. So I guess, but the question becomes, if in the auditor's protocol it doesn't
I understand.
get put in there, then doesn't it become something that the board has to take action on to direct the auditor to perform that audit. That's the way we do everything else. We don't have if we don't have a board action that directs something like that to happen, then it's not really the will of the board to do it, right? I mean, so
But that's the way the process has been established.
right, okay. So, but I am correct that we could come back next month and talk about additional audits and either amend the audit plan or absorb those audits if they could be absorbed into the special projects. Is that correct?
Well, we can't guarantee, you're correct, but there's also no guarantee that we can fit those two audits that have been discussed here tonight into that 800 hours. We don't know that.
Okay. So in that,
That's yet again another question. Unfortunately, Lee's gotten put on the hot seat.
You've done a
because-
great job.
Yeah, but it's, the thing of it is we can't guarantee that those 800 hours would be enough, but I shouldn't be debating as chair.
Right, okay.
Okay, so Dr. O'Connor.
Thank you.
Yes, I would just say thank you. It's a hard situation for everyone with the loss, death in the family, and then you stepping up. In a similar vein, I was thinking if we went ahead, your clarification helped. This is not the plan. These are a few items that you're seeking to add in addition to the ones that are ongoing, but the door is not closed if another board member would like to discuss making an add later on. Is that your understanding?
That's correct.
So I would think if we could just go ahead and approve what we believe you all are saying are the things that you need in order to begin the year, adding to 2018, unless somebody has an objection to those specific items, then at the next month or as soon as Mr. Barber is available to have a discussion about adding, I think that part of the issue is that you'd have one more person a little bit later so that those adds would be easier to absorb perhaps, but I wonder if it would be okay if, with the understanding that if Mr. Lewis has specific projects to bring or discuss, we would be open to doing that, but going ahead and approving tonight would not preclude his doing what he wants to do. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
That would be my understanding of the process, yes.
Then I would request that we go ahead as
Well,
usual.
we have a motion on the floor to postpone.
Okay.
We have to deal with that. Mrs. Grayson?
So I have a question. If the master plan rolls over, and obviously there's no guarantee that you're going to finish a particular audit within a particular calendar year, in fact, that's rarely the case, then, and this is a question I would like, again, for Mr. Barber to answer, why would there not be enough time to add an audit to the plan if, I mean, you could just add it and keep rolling it forward till you get them all done. I would like to know more about this process. I think everybody's got a different perception. I mean, Ms. Wells' comment makes perfect sense that we should at some point discuss audits, but to send out an email requesting audits and then say, oh, there's not enough time, but yet they roll forward continuously for years and years and years, that doesn't seem to make sense to me. So I would like to have some answers. I would like to have some questions answered before we approve this, because if I understand it correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we approve these 4 projects, then these allotted hours are going to be spent on these projects when at a later time we may decide, hey, we really need to look at something else. So again, I mean, I think it's incredibly unfortunate that we try to have this discussion without the head auditor.
Could I just make one statement? There was a time we did finish these during the year, but we've gone from 5 employees to 3, so that's kind of where things have gotten skewed. And also, there was a year that we had a complete year of fraud. That took an entire year from our plan, and if you go back and look, that's sort of where everything kind of got out of kilter. Basically took a whole year out of our plan. So I think at some point we'll be able to catch up. It's just hard when you take that. I mean, that was an entire year that we kind of lost, basically. So just to give you, I mean, we are working. We're just, it's just a.
Oh, and don't
Hard
get
to-
me wrong,
hard to
I'm not
get-
saying
I
there's
know,
anything wrong
I
with
know.
rolling them forward. I'm just saying if you have a list, it
Right,
seems like it's more of a scroll, and you would just add audits as requested and get to them when you can get to them.
Doug, have you got a Cliff Notes version to share with us?
My version is more of a recommendation for you to entertain. I would say that if the board, there's consensus of the board, and it's the administration's recommendation that there is a specific audit that needs to go forward, that would be approved by a vote, and then the master plan can be revised, and whether it be next month or subsequent months. That would be my
Well,
recommendation.
let me clarify then. You're saying that for discussion's sake in this particular application, that if 134 or 135 needed to be dealt with now, started, we could approve that one and postpone the balance of the recommendations?
That is my recommendation, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Malina-Wells?
I was just going to say, if Mr. Lewis has given several requests year after year, I would think that his request is not going to be answered if we approve this. And that would be my concern, to approve this now. Because if he hasn't gotten his requests approved year after year after year, and we approve this now, then what's to say that we're going to approve his now? I'm going to take sides with Mr. Lewis at this time, because
Okay.
I understand where he's coming from.
Okay. Dr. O'Connor and then Mr. Meek.
I guess I just, for clarification of the interaction with Mr. Webb, it seems like that would be the advice if this motion
If
fails.
The motion currently on the floor is to postpone the entire recommendation, all four.
Right.
If that one fails,
then
or is
you
not
can-
amended, then we could go back and make another motion to approve the 135 and postpone
Okay.
the other three.
That's all I wanted to know,
That
just
would
to
work.
clarify.
Okay, Mr. Meek, then Mr. Sutter.
I'm just going to say that, if a board member has a suggestion for the audit and it's not approved by the internal auditor, then his next step, I would think, is to bring it to the committee of the whole. And if he can get 6 other board members to agree with him, he can get that passed and then approved by the board. I've had requests before that I don't want to say they were denied, but they never got around to it, and they probably was, Rick was more engaged on something else or another audit. I haven't asked for an audit on a specific item in several years, and I'm sorry that what's his name here didn't get his approved either. But it's been years. If you're here 25 years, you may get one approved. But Mr. Chairman, I appreciate what our legal counsel told us, but I'd still like for him to answer the damn question.
That was an answer.
Oh, well,
What now?
hold on. Now, my recommendation is to clear up any ambiguity, since we're here in a board meeting, is to clear up the ambiguity by taking a vote on how the internal auditor should proceed, and approving any items that should be approved at this meeting. And then the master plan can always be revised at a subsequent board meeting.
But I thought the question that the chairman asked you, Mr. Webb, was if the chair could overrule the board's decision.
If there's an affirmative board decision, then no, the board chair by himself or herself could not overrule.
Thank you.
Mr. Sutter.
Clarification.
Yes, sir.
Can a board member go to the auditor and ask for an audit and the auditor do it, or must it be approved by the board?
I believe there are a number of avenues there. The request could be requested by the internal auditor, once the internal auditor receives it from the board member, and then approved through the board chair, or it could be made as part of the master plan. But either way, it would be approved through the process, through the board chair at that point, or through the master plan.
There's also the opportunity for the administration to request audits, especially in areas where there may be financial issues.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I also believe in the policy that it states that the board chair can request one also. It doesn't have.
That is correct. I cannot overturn, or the board chair cannot overturn a decision of the board, but the board chair can ask for one to be conducted.
That's correct.
Without a board approval.
Correct.
Thank you.
But can anyone else?
No one do it. Pat, you finished?
Can an individual board member go to the auditor and ask for an audit or request an audit and it be approved and the auditor do it?
If you're not the chair.
Or must it be approved by the board? My question is very simple, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Can an individual go to the auditor and request an audit, or must it come through the school board or the school chair?
It is my understanding, and I stand to be corrected, that the board chair can ask for an audit individually in I guess what I would term an extreme circumstance. If anyone on the board other than the board chair would request an audit, they would have to take action of the board to be included. Mr. Barber's letter to us annually asks for our input on an audit plan, asking for suggestions, which is, to Mr. Lewis's point, every year we get the same memo. We offer input. I think several of us have offered suggestions in the past, and Mr. Barber uses that as he develops his action plan. Does that answer your question?
And Mr. Sailors, just so we all have the information before us, it is board policy DIDB. And I can read to you the pertinent language. It's about 3 sentences for clarification.
Please do.
The chief.
Oh.
I'm sorry. The chief auditing executive shall be responsible to schedule auditing activities through the use of a master plan, which is to be approved by the Board of Trustees. The CAE may, in his discretion and with the approval of the board chairman, conduct any additional audits that the superintendent requests. Similarly, the CAE must receive approval from the board chairman prior to conducting any other audit that is not part of the master audit plan. The CAE shall promptly inform the board of any audits that the superintendent or the CAE request.
I hope everyone found that helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Still doesn't answer the question. Can an individual board member go before the auditor and request an audit?
Not without approval of the board, Pat.
Mr. Chairman, can I?
Mr. Meek.
Pat, if you have a request, you can send it to Rick. Rick can, if he puts it on the master list, then he has to bring that master list like they are today to get approval by the board. You can request it, but the board's got to approve it.
Why don't we have it go before the board to be approved before it goes to the auditor?
Because
it looks like we were going in the back door.
Because an individual can request it, that don't mean they're going to get it unless we approve it.
I've got several board members to me that could go and request audits, and we got audits coming out everywhere.
Yes, sir, but he may not.
To me, it would be better.
Guys, okay. Thanks for the clarification, Mr. Meek.
I tried.
Pat, I hope that helped.
I'm through.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to postpone the recommendations as presented. Any other discussion? Mr. Lewis.
I feel like we lost the rails here a minute. I just want to be clear. I don't have a problem with the plan here. I want to know why the items that I requested per the auditor's request aren't included. And I'm uncomfortable approving a plan that doesn't have the request that I was asked to make included on it. And all I'm asking is for that man to be sitting in this room and answer that question in front of this group of people. I'm not asking for any secretive thing to be done. I'm just saying we can wait. I also want to say that I have heard very clearly that there's a whole lot of work that hadn't been done yet from 2018 that can be done today, and that there's a possibility that if there's something that needs to be done here, that we could take action on that right now as well. I just want to know the answer to why the audits I requested aren't on here, and the staff that are present seem to be unable to answer that question for the individual who's absent. I also want to be clear that I knew he would be absent and asked that this be delayed, and that staff said no. So we're having a discussion that they asked for and I asked not to have. So we can talk about this as long as you want to, but all I'm asking is that the person who made the decision not to include my audit requests on their plan be present to answer that question for us on record. And if we approve this document the way that it is now, he will not be present to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to be supportive of my colleague's desire to get his question answered, and I think that's appropriate. But I don't see the connection to making this vote tonight, because you're saying you don't have a problem with what has been brought and where we're headed with it. You just want to know why your requests aren't on here, and it just seems to hold an action item for a month so that you can get an unrelated question answered doesn't seem necessary to me. So I'm going to vote against it for that reason.
Okay.
Can I just make one comment? I do know that Rick has a detailed spreadsheet of where he ranks the risk of projects. I haven't studied that by any means, but I would think that the projects that have been suggested have been included in that risk assessment. And if he backs out the hours, I mean, I'm not trying to speak for him, but I would think that those are included in what falls out with the higher risk is usually what goes on the plan. So that might give you a little bit of, it doesn't really help you too much, but I do know that he has a very detailed, and he can share that with you, just to give you a little heads up.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to postpone the recommendation of the Internal Auditing Services Department. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye. Aye. Chair needs a show of hands. All those in favor of the motion as stated to postpone? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion carries by a vote of 7 to 5.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Wells.
So now that we have voted to postpone that, does that mean we can't make a motion? Could we make a motion to allow the 135 audit to move forward, or is that?
It's postponed.
It's postponed. All of it's postponed.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask the chair to consider that, based on the conversation we had tonight, we might need a little bit more clarification before that, because I, too, believe that if there's a discussion about, this is the first time I'd heard of these audits that Mr. Lewis has been requesting and not getting for 3 years and so on, and if there was a better mechanism for us to hear the concerns and have a conversation about the audit requests, I think it would help us not to be put in a position to be voting for something that only one person knows.
I agree that we need to have more information on a number of things that we discussed tonight. So, for example, Lee is correct in the fact that they have 3, where in the past they've had more.
I vote no. I have to be somebody to vote for it.
Where we've had, in the past, where we've had additional staff working in the internal auditing department. That said, the leadership of the department has been told if they need additional resources by contract, they have it within their ability to facilitate that. So we need to have a conversation with Rick. If it's permissible with the board, I will have a conversation with Mr. Barber, with the administration, and try to find a way to get 135 dealt with in the most appropriate manner.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I hate to do this, but
Go ahead.
we've already voted on the motion. It's
I know.
off the floor. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I believe that there was an understanding that this motion could be postponed, and then also 135 could be added simultaneously, which I think was a misunderstanding. So that is not my intent to delay any work. So it would be my motion that we reconsider the motion here and then be amended to postpone the master internal audit plan for the 2019 calendar year, but to allow to continue the 135-day report that's due.
Mr. Chairman?
Wait a minute. Doug, is that appropriate?
I believe it is. He voted in the affirmative on the first one, so he can make that motion.
Which
Okay.
I believe will allow us to postpone the entire plan, but will allow that one specific audit, which seems to be causing some heartache,
Yeah.
to continue while we wait.
Mr. Chairman,
All right, Mr. Meek.
he's unable to make a request to reconsider with conditions. If he makes a motion to reconsider, everything's back on the floor again. You can't make it with the, when you reconsider, everything's back on the floor. It's just as if your vote never happened. You could amend whatever.
Okay, so we have a motion to reconsider the previous action.
Okay.
Okay?
So now-
All
I'll
those,
second.
okay, all those in favor?
Can I second?
He can't, he didn't vote
You
on
can,
No.
Linda.
Somebody affirmative.
Okay, Linda second. So we're making, these five teacher cadets on the front row this is how you make sausage, guys, okay?
I told them it'd be fun. I told them if they stayed, it'd be fun.
Well, they're sitting there going, oh my God, what's going on? Okay. We have a motion on the floor to reconsider the previous action. It has been properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as stated to reconsider, say aye.
Anybody vote on that?
Ma'am?
Anybody can
vote because we're voting to reconsider. All those in favor of the motion to reconsider, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Mr. Lewis, or does somebody down there have a motion to make?
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mrs. Wells.
So I would like to offer an amendment to the
Now the motion on the
postponement.
floor.
So
Well, the
can we put
motion
that
on the
back up so I
floor
can
for the
see it?
audience. Now that we've gone back to reconsideration, we go back to the original motion,
Right.
which is to approve the recommendation of the internal auditing plan. Okay, so now we're going to re-amend that motion, I'm assuming. Mrs. Wells.
All right, well, no, Mr. Chairman, clarify. When we were reconsidering the motion, I thought the motion we're going to reconsider is the postponement.
That's correct.
Right.
Right. So it's not.
Okay, then
so-
go ahead.
Yeah. So I'd like to, we need to get that motion back up there. The motion to
The motion to
postpone is the
postpone.
one that should be up there is the,
Yes.
Now it's not postponed. So
It's not
we're starting
postponed
over.
anymore.
It's not postponed.
this is a motion to reconsider, or the vote was to reconsider the motion. So the motion we're going to reconsider is to postpone the approval of the 2019 audit plan until the February board meeting. I would like to offer an amendment to that to say, to postpone the approval of the 2019 audit plan until the February board meeting, but allow the approval of the, what do we call it, the 135? Yeah, the
135-day
135-day audit to take place.
Second.
Okay, I have a,
Wait a minute, I need to see this.
we have a motion to amend as stated, and we're waiting for it to be posted. It's been properly made and seconded.
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on a second.
Mr. Chairman, could I get clarification from legal counsel?
Please.
Doug, when we reconsidered, did it go back to the postponement motion or to the original motion?
The postponement vote.
The motion to
and the motion to postpone. So that would be the one that would be
Right.
amended at this point.
So
I know that's what they're trying to do here, but is that I thought when you put it back to, after you did the reconsideration, we're back to the main motion,
That's what I'm.
not the postponement.
No, the vote was on postponing the entire agenda item until a later time. So you're voting on that postponement. If let's say, for example, that motion was not made and it was the approval and it was not approved,
Okay.
then that would be back to the first item, the
Thank you,
main
sir.
item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Dr. O'Connor?
I think that answered it. It's
Okay,
just-
and we have, you do, I'm sorry, I thought you were through.
No, well, I guess I thought that once we reconsidered, it kind of erased the action that had been taken prior.
But I think, I was working from that same belief, but I believe Doug
Motion to
corrected.
approve the master.
Okay, we now have before you, as you see on the board, please, the motion is to postpone the approval of the master internal audit plan for 2019 calendar year, but allow the approval of the 135-day audit. It's been properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just straighten my mind, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
This is amendment to the motion to postpone.
Yes, it is. That's my understanding.
Is an amendment allowable, Mr. Webb, on a motion to postpone? I don't have my Robert rules with me, do you?
Give me 30 seconds.
Please, I'm not sure it's
Well, it's
amendable.
it's the opinion of the chair that it is, but I would like to have legal counsel clarify. Thank you.
I think it goes back to the.
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir.
Regarding the request for audits that were made over the last 2 or 3 years.
No, Roy, we need to be discussing this motion, not anything else.
I do want to ask about
get
that
it.
before we
Okay,
get
yeah.
through.
Okay.
Yes.
It is debatable.
It's amendable.
It's
Yes.
amendable.
Thank you.
Okay, now, once we take the vote, there'll be no more debate or discussion on this. So, Mr. Chamley, do you have a question related to this that ties into this motion that's on the floor?
Not to this motion that's on the floor. I have a question as to the validity of the requests that were made outside of the board previously by Mr. Lewis.
Okay,
And
well-
I think that needs to be cleared up. It doesn't have to be cleared up for this particular motion, but I would like at some point to make sure that we're all on the same track whenever we're making those motions. So
It's
that's all.
the intention of the chair to clear that up once we get Mr. Barber in the room at the appropriate time. Is that fair enough?
That's fair enough.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am?
By voting yes, does this imply that this board, in the chair's opinion, is making a decision that only one of these items that our internal auditor is bringing to us and saying are important to add to the 2019 schedule merits a yes? Because if so, I could not
No,
support.
ma'am. Linda, let me answer the question. What this does is it allows the administration and the audit department to move forward with a 135-day audit. The balance of the work will be addressed next month. It does not place any more importance over the other. That is the opinion of the chair.
Okay, and if Mr. Barber were to disagree and have information that is not available to you tonight about a time sensitivity relating to these other items, could he come to the chair and request?
It would be the chair's opinion that he could, but I would not take action without legal counsel and the board's knowledge. Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Yes, sir.
I'd like some advice again.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Webb, on the motion to postpone, can you put an amendment in that to amend the motion, like she has, to amend that main motion? She's not, I thought the motion to postpone would only do the time, not the body of the motion. I thought you could make a change or amendment or whatever to different date, different time, but not what the main motion is doing. She's on the motion to postpone now.
You can amend a motion to postpone. The substance of the motion can be amended. And to me, to table the other items but move forward with the 135-day audit is an acceptable amendment.
I disagree with you twice tonight.
Okay, let's move forward. We have a motion properly made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Let's have a show of hands. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 8 in favor. All those opposed? We have 4 in opposition. The motion carries 8-4. The next item of business on our agenda is item 6.03, the naming of the high school auditorium at Malden High.
Mr. Chairman.
There is a recommended motion coming from the Committee of the Whole to approve naming of the Malden High School Auditorium the Pamela S. Mayfield Auditorium. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Dr. O'Connor.
Yes, if I may, I would like to just point out that there were several wonderful letters from the community about Ms. Mayfield and her work and the importance of the chorus at Malden. My son had the privilege of being one of those students, and I've known Ms. Mayfield since she and my sister graduated together from Hillcrest. But this one letter from a former student, I think, captures the feeling behind what the community is asking, and I would like to ask to share it. From Delaney Smith, one of Ms. Mayfield's former students.
You're reading this into the record?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm writing on behalf of the former choral students in hopes that you would consider naming the auditorium at Malden High School after Pam Mayfield. We feel this would be a great way to honor her for dedicated service to the school and the program. Ms. Mayfield has been at Malden High School for 26 years. She will be retiring at the end of this school year. Her commitment to her thousands of students over the years is extraordinary. She's been more than a teacher to her students. She uses her gifts to teach her students about music, that music is more than singing. It's something that speaks to each person differently. She uses music to teach her students to grow into the people they are today. Her students have given her the nickname Mama May. That is a testament to the love she poured into her students. And this didn't end when they graduated from high school. They then graduated from being one of her students and became a part of her large circle of friends. Thank you for taking the time to consider this way of honoring Ms. Mayfield. Delaney Smith.
Thank you, Dr. O'Connor. We have a motion properly made and seconded coming from Committee of the Whole. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye. Aye. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
I don't have any problem with this. I don't know the person.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure that she is perfectly in the students' hearts and should have some sort of recognition. My problem has been whether it's a highway or a museum or any edifice or organization, I have always had a problem with naming something after a person who's alive. Now, I know everybody else may disagree with that, but that's my position, and I have reasons for it, as we have experienced in this local area within the last 10 or 15 years. And I would much prefer not to name things as a policy after people that are alive. Now, our policy may be that that's okay, and I'm not going to oppose it, but I may have to just simply abstain from voting on this for that simple reason.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Sherry, would you please note for the record that Mr. Shamley abstained from the vote?
If they are working.
The next item of business in order is item 6.04, the naming of the Hillcrest High School. It's the naming of the, not the Commons area, but the upper courtyard. It was adjusted in board docs. Am I right, Nancy? The motion is for naming it, naming the upper courtyard, not the entire Commons area. Okay, Dr. O'Connor.
Yes, sir. This is a special.
You need to make the motion first.
I move to name the upper courtyard the Stephen H. Hamness Memorial
Second.
Courtyard.
Well, Mrs. Wells,
Oh.
you wanted to, okay.
Second.
It was seconded by Lisa Wells, motion made by Crystal O'Connor. Dr. O'Connor?
Yes, thank you. I want to say that I really appreciate the efforts that the community made to try to respond very quickly due to the unexpected death of Mr. Chamness last week, and thanking the superintendent and the board chairman and the board for allowing this to come forward as suddenly as it needed to come forward. And the community wanted to be able to honor Steve Chamness and his family before his memorial service, which is to be held on Saturday. So I'm very thankful that we were able to accommodate that request. And as with the prior naming, there were multiple letters from the typical PTA, SIC, wonderful staff, current principal. But if I may, I just wanted to read one student, thank you, one student letter from the person who was the PTA president when Mr. Chamness was principal there, Kate Cannon. I was thankful to get her permission to share her comments. Mr. Chamness was my favorite principal of all time. He used to let me come in his office and vent, or he would consistently give me guidance on my future for college. Miss Russ, his secretary, and I used to joke with him about how he made a mess every morning at the coffee pot area and would leave paper towels scattered everywhere. He also had coffee stains on his desk calendar at all times. He was a prankster and would set out fake bugs and mice on a computer keyboard to get a laugh in the midst of some chaotic days. He was big on Christmas decorations in the Commons area and doing the angel tree to give back during the holidays. He was a history buff and a devout Democrat. He spoke up a lot on many issues even when he was outnumbered. I admired that so much. And he would always ask if I wanted an orange. We would split an orange during the week and laugh nonstop. He would split an orange, He took it like a champ when we decorated and sticky noted his car. He gave the best hugs and was eager to dance at the pep rallies to our music. Cham, cham, cham the man. You will always have a special place. You believed in me and allowed me to be myself. I will never forget when you corrected my grammar one day and said, sought out, not seeked out. You checked me so fast, but it was out of love. Your heart was so big. Heaven is lucky to have you. I hope you're talking to all your favorite presidents over coffee. Love you. So I think those of us who were fortunate enough to work with Steve and to be his friend would see that that really captures the great sense of humor that he had and the way he loved his students. And I tonight think about Dr. Peak and Mr. Usey and Mr. Hamilton, and there are probably many others of you that I won't name, but those who I think of, that group of four, and how they loved one another and loved this district and represented a time that was really valuable and set a path for us all. And I just am grateful to be able, for this board, to acknowledge him in this small way, for the courtyard he created and loved, where people could go to be creative, to connect with one another and nature, and to dream big. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mrs. Levinas Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve Chamness was the athletic director and my mentor when I first started coaching at J.L. Mann. And I will tell you that he was quite a gentleman, a mentor, a leader, and made a difference in many lives, young and old. He helped so many young people receive scholarships. He cared about them. He believed in them. He believed in his coaches, and he believed in education. He not only coached, not only taught, but he was a principal. And he was a great principal. He also instilled education in his family, where his son now coaches and teaches as well as his wife. So Steve and Bill Utze were at JL Mann together. I just have the utmost respect for Steve, and I think this is a great honor at Hillcrest because he did a great job. So thank you for reading the student's letter, and Steve will always remain in my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, yes, Mr. Meek. Sure. Okay. We will reconvene at, let's say, 8:50. Linda? Okay. Our next item on the agenda is item 7.01, Internal Auditing Services Project Status Report. Hi, Lee.
Are you still here?
Yeah, we didn't run you off the first time? Okay. Anyway, Lee, do you have anything you'd like to update us on, please? Okay.
Never.
We'd appreciate that. Let's move on. Does anyone have any questions at this time about any of the report that was on the board docs? Okay. Lee, thank you very much for being here this evening, and our condolences to Rick and his family. Okay. The next item is under information and action items from committees and liaisons. Are there any committees or association liaisons that would like to report at this time? Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Advocacy Committee met today. You saw the result of that final school safety report, which we appreciate this group passing unanimously out of board. Will now be presented at the South Carolina School Board Association conference in a month. The other action item that we did take is to draft a letter supporting the current bills that have been filed to advocate for the removal of the Education Oversight Committee, which is in line with the resolution this board has already passed. However, since those bills had not been filed when the board passed the resolution, we will be drafting the letter and bringing it to the Committee of the Whole in February so that this board has one final attempt to look at the language to make sure that it aligns with both the resolution that was passed and the language of those bills. So that will be an action item for the board to approve at the February Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mrs. Grayson?
Just briefly, I forgot to set the next Superintendent Evaluation Committee meeting. So we did meet today, and we'll just plan to meet at 5 o'clock before the February 26th board meeting, if that suits everybody. Still preliminary, but we did some good work today. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Wells?
I just would like to say that the Instructional Policies Committee today approved and passed out of committee our final instructional policy that needed to be updated, and it will come in February to the February meeting, Committee of the Whole, for us to approve. So kudos to the board for all the work that we've done. I'll be looking forward to bringing that to the Committee of the Whole, and then we can move on to other policies. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Start spreading the news.
Yeah, start drinking. Okay. Okay, let's see. Monthly financial report. Dr. Royster.
Hey, Mr. Sellers, I believe that Mr. Knotts has a brief report.
Yes, sir, just brief.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions? I'm only kidding.
You will notice, if you remember back in the December board meeting, I kind of gave a heads up that the property taxes for November would be substantially lower than prior years. Where it has been, it's about 5.5% lower than November of last year. However, in December's property taxes have been substantially stronger than prior Decembers. So through December, we're about a 0.8% behind in our property tax collections. We've also been monitoring the January property tax collection, and they are coming in very strong. I believe all of this is just due to the property tax notices being released a little bit later this time than prior years. So I feel we're in good financial position related to property taxes. Okay. Thank you.
Also, before we take questions, I've asked Dr. Royster to kind of give us an update on anything we've learned related to the federal partial shutdown and the funding for some of our programs that comes from D.C.
Yeah, at this point, as we shared with you in writing earlier, there is not any specific aspect of the current shutdown that's negatively affecting us. And I think you noticed in there the first place that we may have some issues could be later on in food service, and we would operate utilizing the food service fund balance. All the other special projects, which are the bulk of our other federal revenue, the state's already received its money for this calendar fiscal year, the school year, and we're drawing down on that. And I don't think, Jeff, you're not aware of anything that's changed our position significantly since we sent that, are you, Jeff?
No, sir. Just one thing. We did get a report either today or yesterday about their food service allocations. They have released additional money for food service to take their food service programs through the end of the current school year, which is good news.
So we're obviously still watching all that very closely, and our concern is anything that might extend past June 30th and affect us into next fiscal year, because as you will recall, that's the time of the year when we draw on our own fund balance to make sure we don't have to borrow money to meet our normal operating obligations until the bulk of our property taxes come in January and February.
Mrs. Goodwin-Caldwell.
Oh.
We're having some issues with
there's some kind of feedback in the system tonight.
But this is missing right here. Jeff, if the state has already received the special revenue, how far behind are we on? I see the percentage is lower than it was last year. Are we far behind on receiving our money from the state for the special revenue funds?
One item that we did experience a delay this year is the state approving our Title I application, which they did in January. And until the state approves our Title I application, any claims we have submitted to the state for reimbursement do not get processed. So that's one thing why you're receiving we're seeing a lower reimbursement from special revenues than we did at the same time last year. But we did submit a $5.3 million reimbursement claim to the state for Title I 2 weeks ago, right after the state approved our Title I application for this year.
Was there a reason why it was so late being approved?
I do not know. I can find out.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions of Mr. Knotts? Mr. Meek.
Thank you, Mr. Knotts. The balances that are on the balance sheet, is that the latest you have? You don't have December's yet?
I do not have December's.
So the fund balance, that's the unassigned fund balance, 60-some million, was it? 62 million?
Yes, sir, it's 52.9 million unassigned fund balance as of the end of November.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Knotts? Thank you, Jeff. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you and have a good evening.